In the world of high-stakes collectibles and rare memorabilia, few names are as recognizable as Rick Harrison. As the owner of the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, Nevada, Rick has built a reputation for his sharp eye, quick wit, and uncanny ability to spot value where others see clutter. His hit reality TV show Pawn Stars has captivated audiences for over a decade, blending entertainment with education as he and his team evaluate everything from antique firearms to vintage comic books. But even for someone used to handling million-dollar items on a daily basis, there are moments that stand out, moments when history walks through the door, wrapped in dust and mystery. One such moment came not long ago, when a man walked into the shop carrying something truly extraordinary. A vintage race car that had once competed in the Indianapolis 500. The car wasn't flashy or pristine. It was battered, faded, and clearly hadn't seen a racetrack in decades. Parked outside the pawn shop due to its size, it immediately drew attention from customers and employees alike. But while others saw just an old piece of machinery, Rick knew better. He could sense the weight of history behind those rusted panels. The owner, a middle-aged man named James Carter, explained that the car had belonged to his grandfather, who had worked as a mechanic during the 1950s. According to family lore, the vehicle had been part of a small racing team that entered the 1954 Indianapolis 500. Though it didn't win, it finished mid-pack and was later sold off after the season ended. Over the years, it passed through several hands before ending up in James's possession. James claimed that the car still had its original engine and chassis, along with some paperwork proving its participation in the race. He wasn't sure how much it was worth, but he thought it might be valuable enough to help him pay off some debts and start fresh. Rick listened carefully, nodding occasionally while studying the car with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. He'd seen plenty of people come in claiming to own pieces of racing history, only to find out their treasures were nothing more than replicas or heavily modified machines. Still, something about this car felt different. After taking a look at the paperwork, James brought in a yellowing set of maintenance logs, a torn ticket stub from the race, and a photo of the car on the track. Rick decided to do some digging. He reached out to Corey, the shop's go-to historian and researcher, who immediately got to work verifying the car's authenticity. Corey started by cross-referencing the chassis number with official records from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway archives. To his surprise, the number matched a 1954 entry driven by a lesser-known driver named Bill Dawson. The car was listed as a Curtis Craft Model 500C, powered by an Offenhauser engine, a common combination for the era. Further research revealed that the car had indeed competed in the 1954 race, finishing 23rd out of 33 cars. It had been involved in a minor collision early on, but managed to stay in the race until the checkered flag. After the event, it was sold to a private owner in California and eventually disappeared from public view. Armed with this information, Corey returned to Rick with a cautious green light. The car was real, and it had genuine historical significance. Now it was time to decide whether to make an offer. Rick sat down with James and laid everything out. He explained what they found, how rare the car was, and why it mattered. Then came the hard part. Rick made it clear that while the car had undeniable historical value, its condition presented a major challenge. Restoration would be expensive, potentially 6 figures or more, and there was no guarantee of recouping the investment. Even if restored, the market for vintage race cars was niche and highly dependent on provenance, aesthetics, and buyer interest. As for the current state of the car, Rick noted that selling it wouldn't fetch much more than scrap value. Without restoration, it was essentially a parts car useful to collectors or restorers looking for original components. So instead of making an offer, Rick did something unusual. He declined to buy it. "I can't give you what you want," Rick said bluntly, "and I won't insult you with a lowball. This thing is special, but it's not worth anything unless it gets fixed up. If you're serious about getting what it's really worth, you need to invest in a full restoration." James looked disappointed but understood. He asked Rick if he knew anyone who could help with the process, and Rick offered to put him in touch with a contact in the classic car community, someone who specialized in restoring vintage racers. For many, walking away from a deal like this would have been unthinkable. Rick had the chance to add a rare piece of motorsport history to his collection, and yet he chose not to. Some might call it uncharacteristic. Others would argue it was the smart business move. Rick has always maintained that he doesn't buy things he doesn't believe in. And in this case, the belief wasn't there not because the car lacked value, but because the path to realizing that value was too uncertain. Still, the encounter left an impression on everyone involved. Corey couldn't stop talking about the car for days, marveling at how close they'd come to owning a piece of racing history. Chumley, ever the skeptic, joked that Rick had missed out on a potential goldmine. Even the cameras lingered a bit longer on the car before cutting away. As for James, he took Rick's advice. Within weeks, he contacted the restorer Rick had recommended and began planning the car's resurrection. The process would take months, maybe even years, but for the first time in decades, the forgotten champion had a future. The Indianapolis 500 is more than just a race. It's a cultural institution. Since its inaugural running in 1911, the greatest spectacle in racing has captured the imagination of fans around the world. Winning the Indy 500 isn't just a victory, it's a place in history. Even the cars that don't win carry a certain mystique. Each one tells a story of ambition, engineering, and human spirit. Some become famous simply by surviving. Others fade into obscurity, waiting for someone to rediscover them. This particular car, now undergoing restoration thousands of miles from the pawn shop, is one of those survivors. Its journey from dusty relic to potential masterpiece mirrors the broader arc of American automotive history, a tale of innovation, competition, and the relentless pursuit of speed. Critics might say Rick missed an opportunity. After all, how often does a real Indy 500 car walk through your door? But the truth is, Rick understands the nuances of collecting better than most. He knows that not every treasure is worth pursuing, especially when the risks outweigh the rewards. By turning down the sale, Rick avoided a costly gamble. More importantly, he gave the car a better chance at finding the right home, one where it could be properly cared for and appreciated for what it truly was, a piece of living history. In the end, the story of Rick Harrison and the vintage Indy 500 car isn't about money or missed deals. It's about respect for the past, for the craft, and for the people who keep these stories alive. Today, the car is nearing completion of its restoration. James visits the shop regularly, watching as mechanics strip away decades of neglect and bring the machine back to life. When it's finished, he plans to display it at vintage racing events and possibly even enter it into exhibition runs. Meanwhile, the episode featuring the car aired to strong ratings. Fans loved the underdog story, the glimpse into racing history, and Rick's rare moment of restraint. Some called it one of the most memorable segments in recent seasons. As for Rick, he remains busy at the pawn shop, dealing with whatever comes through the door. But every so often, when someone mentions the Indy car, he smiles knowingly. He didn't buy it. But in his own way, he helped save it.